There was a time when a poor farmer could keep an entire farm moving with a few pieces of iron hanging inside a barn. No diesel, no computer, no monthly payment. Today, one farm machine can cost more than an old farmhouse. But a century ago, ordinary families planted crops, cut hay, cleaned grain, pumped water, processed animal feed, and repaired fences with tools they could fix themselves. One tool on this list cleaned seed without electricity. Another worked on steep ground where a tractor could barely move. And the final tool looks simple, but it helped decide whether a whole farming season could begin at all. These tools were not faster than modern machines, but they gave poor farmers something just as important: a way to work without buying equipment they could never afford. Subscribe if you believe the smartest farm tool was not always the biggest, newest, or most expensive one. Let's count down 25 forgotten poor man's farm tools that did the work of expensive machines. Number 25, the seed dibber. The seed dibber may be the simplest tool on this list. It was often nothing more than a pointed piece of wood, sometimes fitted with an iron tip and a handle. The farmer pushed it into the soil, made a hole, dropped in a seed, and moved to the next spot. That sounds slow, but the dibber gave farmers something valuable: control. Every hole could be nearly the same depth. In a vegetable garden, that meant better spacing, easier weeding, and fewer wasted seeds. Modern transplanting and planting machines can do this work much faster. Children often followed behind an adult, dropping beans, corn, or squash seeds into each hole. It looked like a sharpened stick, but in experienced hands, it brought order to an entire garden. Number 24, the jab planter. The jab planter was a small tool with a surprisingly big job. The farmer pushed its pointed end into the ground, squeezed the handles, and released one or more seeds into the hole. Then he lifted it, stepped forward, and repeated the motion. Corn and beans could be planted without bending down for every seed. A modern row planter uses wheels, chains, plates, sensors, and sometimes computers to place seed at the correct depth. The jab planter used a wooden tube, a small metal mechanism, and the farmer's legs. Its engine was the person carrying it. On a large farm, it was slow, but for a small field or a family garden, it saved time and protected the farmer's back. Step, jab, squeeze, lift. By sunset, a whole row could be planted with a tool that cost little, needed no fuel, and could be repaired with basic hand tools. Number 23, the broadcast seed sower. Before powered spreaders, farmers often carried seed across a field in a shoulder bag. Inside the bag was a small hand-cranked mechanism. As the farmer walked, he turned the crank, and the machine threw seed in a wide arc. This was the broadcast seed sower. It was useful for grass seed, pasture crops, grain, and cover crops. Today, tractors, utility vehicles, and powered spreaders can cover large fields very quickly, but the old broadcast sower did not need gasoline, electricity, or a battery. Wind could cause problems, walk too fast, and the seed became thin, turned too slowly, and too much seed fell in one place. The tool was simple, but using it well took judgment. A farmer had to read the field, feel the wind, and keep the crank moving in rhythm. Number 22, the broad fork. A broad fork looks like a giant fork with two long handles. The farmer steps onto the crossbar, pushes the long metal tines into the ground, and pulls the handles back. This lifts and loosens the soil without completely turning it over. For a family garden, that could reduce the need for a powered tiller. It also worked in narrow spaces where a tractor or rototiller could not fit. The downside was effort. Hard, rocky ground could make the job exhausting. A farmer still had to use body weight, balance, and patience. The advantage was independence. There was no engine to start, no fuel to buy, and no repair shop to call. It did not replace every machine, but on the right piece of ground, it could make a machine unnecessary. Number 21, the manual post hole digger. Every farm needed fences, but every fence post needed a deep, narrow hole. A regular shovel could dig one, but it removed too much soil and made a wide mess. The manual post hole digger was better. It had two long handles connected to metal blades. The farmer pushed the blades into the ground, closed the handles, lifted out the dirt, and repeated the process. Today, powered augers can drill holes in seconds. The old tool could take much longer, especially in dry clay or rocky Appalachian soil. It worked beside trees, on hillsides, and in corners where large equipment could not reach. It was slow, heavy work. After 10 holes, a person's shoulders knew exactly what job had been done. Number 20, the hand seed drill. The hand seed drill was one of the smartest tools a small farmer could own. As the farmer pushed it down a row, a wheel turned a simple mechanism inside the tool. It opened a small furrow, dropped seeds at regular spaces, and sometimes covered them with soil. In one pass, it could do several jobs. This meant less wasted seed, more even spacing, and better germination. For a poor family, every seed mattered. Modern precision planters can plant many rows at once using advanced controls. The hand seed drill worked one row at a time. The farmer still had to choose the right seed plate, set the depth, and keep the tool moving straight. It was not automatic. The machine provided the motion, but the farmer provided the judgment. Number 19, the stirrup hoe. The stirrup hoe has a blade shaped like a loop. As the farmer pushes and pulls it, the blade moves just below the surface of the soil and cuts young weeds from their roots. Today, farms may use powered cultivators, herbicides, or tractor-mounted tools to control weeds. A poor farmer with a stirrup hoe needed none of those things. But timing was everything. The tool worked best when weeds were still small and the soil was dry enough for the cut plants to die on the surface. Wait too long and the roots became strong. Use it in wet soil, and many weeds could grow again. The tool was cheap. Knowing exactly when to use it was the expensive part. The machine did not replace knowledge, it rewarded it. Number 18, the pitcher pump. Before electric well pumps and indoor plumbing, the cast iron pitcher pump was the center of daily farm life. The farmer poured a little water into the top to prime it, then worked the long handle up and down. A leather cup inside created suction and pulled water from the well. Today, an electric pump can move water all day with the push of a switch. The old pitcher pump required human effort every single time. On a winter morning, the iron handle could feel painfully cold. The pump had limits. It could not lift water from every depth, and worn leather parts had to be replaced. Still, it was repairable. A family understood how it worked. They did not need a technician or a control panel. It was the heartbeat of the property. Number 17, the potato hook. Potatoes were survival food for many farm families. But digging them with a regular shovel could slice the crop or leave many potatoes buried. The potato hook solved that problem. It had several curved tines. The farmer pushed it into the soil beside the plant, lifted carefully, and brought potatoes to the surface with less damage. Today, power potato diggers lift whole rows and shake away the soil. The potato hook worked one plant at a time. It was slower, but it was cheap and precise. During harvest, one person loosened the hills while others followed with baskets. The tool still required skill. Push too close, and the tines could pierce the crop. A damaged potato would not store as well. That small hook protected food that might need to last until spring. Number 16, the hand cultivator. The hand cultivator was a small tool with several metal tines. Farmers used it to loosen soil, break the hard surface crust, remove small weeds, and work around closely planted crops. Modern motorized cultivators can turn soil quickly, but they are often too large for narrow rows or delicate plants. The hand cultivator gave the farmer control. The downside was effort. A large garden meant hours of pushing, pulling, and bending, but there was no engine to maintain and no fuel to buy. It was a weed remover, soil breaker, row cleaner, and garden repair tool in one. A machine might do the job faster, but the hand cultivator could do it carefully, and careful work often mattered more than speed in a small food garden. Number 15, the sickle. The sickle was one of the first harvesting tools many farm children learned to use. It had a short handle and a curved blade. The farmer held a handful of grass, grain, or weeds and pulled the blade through the stems. Today, a powered string trimmer or brush cutter can clear these areas much faster. The sickle needed no fuel and made almost no sound, but it was dangerous. A careless pull could bring the blade toward the user's hand, leg, or foot. A child had to learn where to stand, how to grip the plants, and which direction to cut. The tool demanded attention. Used correctly, it was precise and dependable. Used carelessly, it could cause a deep injury. Old tools were simple, but they did not forgive foolish movements. Number 14, the scythe. The scythe was not just a large sickle. It was a tool built around rhythm. A long, curved blade was attached to a wooden handle called a snath. The farmer swung it in a wide, smooth arc, cutting hay, grain, or tall grass close to the ground. A beginner often tried to use strength. An experienced farmer used balance and timing. At dawn, when the grass was still damp, the blade could slide through stems with a soft whisper. Modern mowers can cut in minutes what took a person hours, but a scythe worked on steep slopes, wet corners, and small meadows where heavy equipment was difficult to use. The blade had to stay sharp. A dull scythe exhausted the farmer and tore the crop. It was slow by modern standards, but in skilled hands, it was surprisingly productive. The machine replaced the labor. It also erased the rhythm. Number 13, the hand hay rake. After grass was cut, it had to be gathered and dried. Before powered rakes, families used wide wooden hay rakes. The long teeth pulled loose grass into piles or rows so it could be turned, stacked, or moved to the barn. But in small mountain meadows and steep Appalachian fields, a hand rake remained useful. The work was repetitive. A whole family might walk through a field, each person pulling hay toward the same line. Dust stuck to sweaty skin. Modern rotary rakes can gather a huge field quickly. The wooden rake did not compete with that speed, but it could save every usable armful from a place where a machine could not go. Number 12, the pitchfork. Few tools worked harder than the pitchfork. It moved hay, straw, manure, bedding, compost, and loose feed. Today, many of those jobs are done by loaders, conveyors, and hydraulic attachments. The pitchfork did them one forkful at a time. A skilled worker never lifted with his back alone. He used the long handle for balance, moved with the weight, and threw the load exactly where it needed to land. Poor technique caused pain and injury. If the wooden handle broke, the farmer replaced the handle instead of throwing away the whole tool. It was not equal to a modern loader in power or speed, but on a small farm, it performed many of the same daily jobs. It was cheap, repairable, and always nearby. Number 11, the hay fork and barn pulley. Look into the roof of an old barn, and you may still see a metal track running along the ridge. That track belonged to a hay trolley system. A rope ran through pulleys, and a horse or worker pulled from below. The load rose into the barn, moved along the overhead track, and dropped into the haymow. A large grapple fork grabbed hay, and pulleys lifted more than one person could carry. But the old system needed no engine. It did have dangers. A rope could snap, a heavy load could fall, a frightened horse could move at the wrong moment. Still, the hay fork and trolley turned a barn into a kind of hand-powered factory. For many families, the same system served several generations. Number 10, the hand feed grinder. Farm animals could eat whole grain, but grinding it often made feed easier to mix, measure, and use. The hand feed grinder had a hopper on top and grinding plates inside. The farmer poured in corn or grain and turned a heavy crank. Ground meal came out below. Modern hammer mills and power grinders can process large amounts quickly. The old hand grinder could make a person's arms burn after only a few buckets. But it gave poor farmers control. They could grind their own crop instead of buying prepared feed. They knew what went into the mixture, and they could produce only what they needed. Grain cracked inside the iron body, and fresh meal fell warm into a bucket. It was not fast. But every turn of the crank converted something the farm had grown into something the animals could use. Number 9, the hand chaff cutter. Long hay, straw, corn stalks, and other rough plants could be difficult to mix into animal feed. The hand chaff cutter chopped them into shorter pieces. One person turned a crank while another carefully fed material into the machine. Rotating knives cut the stalks again and again. The hand cutter was built for smaller amounts, but it could reduce waste and make rough feed easier for animals to eat. The danger was obvious. Hands had to stay far from the knives. Loose clothing and careless movements could become deadly. Many old machines had no safety covers, emergency stops, or warning labels. The people using them learned through strict habits and sometimes painful experience. The chaff cutter helped turn stalks and rough plants into something useful. It was a small machine doing one important part of a much larger job. Number 8. The hand cider press. An orchard could produce more apples than a family could eat fresh. Some were bruised. Some would spoil before winter. The hand cider press gave those apples another use. First, the fruit was crushed. Then it was packed into layers inside the press. A large screw was turned, creating pressure and forcing juice into a container below. Modern commercial presses use electric motors and hydraulic power. The old press used leverage, wood, iron, and patient hands. Families could turn extra fruit into cider, vinegar, apple butter ingredients, and other products. Pressing day was often social. Children carried apples. The smell of crushed fruit filled the yard. The press did not create a crop. It prevented a crop from being wasted. For a poor family, that could be just as important as growing more food. Number 7. The cross-cut saw. Before the chainsaw, trees were cut with long steel blades and human rhythm. A two-man saw had a person on each end. One pulled, then the other pulled, moving the teeth through the wood. Modern chainsaws are faster, but they need fuel, oil, parts, and maintenance. A cross-cut saw needed a sharp blade, and people who understood how wood behaved. A tree under tension could pinch the blade. A falling trunk could kick, roll, or move in an unexpected direction. Cutting timber was dangerous long before engines made the work louder. Two skilled workers could fall a large tree with almost no noise except the scrape of steel and the cracking wood. The crosscut saw did the work of a powerful machine. Its motor was teamwork. Number 6. The treadle grindstone. The treadle grindstone did not plant crops or harvest grain, but nearly every cutting tool on the farm depended on it. The farmer pumped a foot pedal to spin the stone, added water, and carefully held a blade against the moving surface. Axes, sickles, scythes, knives, hoes, and other tools could all be sharpened. Today, electric bench grinders do this job quickly, but the old whetstone worked slowly and stayed cool, helping protect the hardness of good steel. Sharpening was a skill. Hold the blade at the wrong angle, and the edge became weak. Push too hard, and the shape could be ruined. A dull tool cost time, strength, and sometimes safety. The grindstone was like a repair station for the entire farm. It did not do one big job. It kept 20 other tools ready to do theirs. Number 5, the hand corn sheller. Corn touched nearly every part of life on many small farms. It fed people, chickens, pigs, cattle, and work animals. But before corn could be ground, planted, or mixed into feed, the kernels had to come off the cob. Doing that by hand was slow and painful. The hand corn sheller changed the job. The farmer fed an ear into the top and turned a crank. Studded wheels or plates stripped away the kernels, and the empty cob dropped out. Modern combines can harvest and shell corn in one operation. The old sheller handled only one step, but that step mattered. On winter evenings, children and adults could work beside the stove or by lamplight. The crank squealed. Kernels rattled into a box. Empty cobs collected for fuel, bedding, or other uses. The machine was heavy, simple, and easy to understand. It did one job. On a corn farm, that one job touched almost every meal and every animal. Number 4, the fanning mill. A farmer could save seed from his own crop, but dirty seed created problems. Chaff, dust, weed seed, broken grain, and weak kernels all had to be removed. The fanning mill did that work without electricity. The farmer poured grain into the top and turned a crank. A fan blew away light material while shaking screens separated grain by size and weight. Different screens could be used for crops such as wheat, oats, or alfalfa seed. Early models were hand-powered. Some farmers later added small electric motors. Modern seed cleaning equipment can process huge quantities with great accuracy. The old fanning mill worked slowly, but it gave small farmers control over their own seed. They did not have to throw away a whole harvest because it contained dirt and chaff. They could clean it, sort it, save it, and plant again. That wooden box protected more than grain. It protected independence. Number 3, the grain cradle. At first glance, the grain cradle looks like a scythe with a wooden cage attached to it. Those curved wooden fingers were not decoration. As the farmer swung the blade through wheat or other grain, the cradle caught the cut stalks and guided them into a neat row. A normal scythe could leave stalks scattered. The cradle made gathering and bundling faster. Modern reapers and combines change grain harvest completely. They cut, gather, and process crops at a speed no person could match. The grain cradle handled only the cutting and laying stage, but it was the peak of hand harvesting skill. A good worker needed balance, strength, timing, and a sharp blade. The motion had to be smooth enough to cut the stalks without tangling them. It took years to master. The machine replaced it almost overnight. The tool survived in barns. The skill mostly disappeared with the people who knew the swing. Number 2, the wheel hoe. The wheel hoe may be one of the best examples of a small tool replacing the need for a large machine. It had one wheel, long handles, and interchangeable blades. Depending on the attachment, it could weed, cultivate, open a furrow, loosen soil, or hill crops. The farmer pushed it down the row while standing upright. The wheel carried much of the tool's weight, and the blade worked beneath the surface. A powered cultivator can do the job faster, but on a quarter-acre family garden, a wheel hoe could make gasoline equipment unnecessary. It also worked between narrow rows where larger machines caused damage. The farmer still needed the right soil conditions and proper row spacing. Large weeds could stop the blade, and wet ground made the tool less effective. But when used at the correct time, it moved quickly. It had no engine. It had no fuel tank. Its motor was the farmer walking behind it. Number 1, the walking plow. Before a crop could be planted, the soil often had to be opened and turned. For poor farmers without a tractor, that job belonged to the walking plow. The plow had a steel share and moldboard, 2 handles, a long beam, and a hitch for a horse or mule. The animal pulled while the farmer walked behind, controlling the depth and direction. It looked simple. Using it was not. The farmer had to manage the animal, hold the plow steady, avoid stones and roots, and keep the furrow straight. On rough ground, the handles could jerk hard enough to throw a person off balance. Modern tractors can pull several plows at once from a comfortable seat. The walking plow moved one furrow at a time. But for a family that could not afford a tractor, it made planting possible. It worked on small fields, narrow areas, and mountain ground where larger machines were difficult to use. The poor man's real machine was not the plow alone. It was the plow, the animal, and the farmer working together as one system. These 25 tools planted seed, controlled weeds, cut hay, pumped water, processed crops, prepared animal feed, sharpened blades, built fences, and opened the soil. Modern machines are faster. Many are safer. They can perform in 1 hour what once took a family all day. But the old tools had strengths of their own. They were understandable. They were repairable. A farmer could see the moving parts, replace a handle, sharpen a blade, tighten a bolt, or make a new wooden piece inside the barn. The tools did not require a dealership, a computer, or a large loan. What disappeared was not only the iron and wood, we also lost many of the skills behind them, knowing when soil was ready, how to swing a blade, how to guide an animal, how to sharpen steel, how to use leverage, and how to solve a large problem with a small tool. That does not mean the past was easier. It was not. The work was slow, dangerous, and exhausting. Old farmers paid for cheap tools with time, muscle, and skill. But they proved something worth remembering. A tool does not have to be large to be powerful. And the most expensive part of old farming was often not the equipment, It was the knowledge inside the person using it. Now tell us in the comments, which of these tools did your father, grandfather, or family use? And is one of them still hanging in an old barn today? The tools may have belonged to poor farmers, but the knowledge behind them was anything but cheap.